back. Thanks for joining us today. Got an awesome guest that super excited to interview, and I think you're going to bring a lot of value. So without further ado, let me go ahead and give you an introduction. Thanks for joining us today, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob Cantu. Today's guest lives at the intersection of hard work, saltwater, and straight talk. Bob Cantu is a serial entrepreneur, fisherman, and proud family man. He owns a handy home inspector and coastal marine group, two of the most trusted names in Southwest Florida. Some days, Bob's reeling in deals. Other days, it's redfish. And always, he's got stories and lessons and straight-up value to share. Here's the deal. One bad inspection can kill a real estate transaction. One missed issue on a dock or anything in a home can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And if there's mold lurking behind your drywall after a flood, you might not even know it until it's too late. Bob's seen it all, and today he's pulling back the curtain on what most people overlook, from land to sea. Super excited. Thanks again for joining us, Bob.
What an intro.
I worked on that one with ChatGPT. Yeah, but yeah, man, wanted to spend a little bit of time getting to know you. Genuinely, we love using your company. You've built a great company. You do a great job with home inspections. I think you're the best in Southwest Florida, and that's why we refer you and refer you over and over. In fact, I think we got an inspection coming up tomorrow or Friday that we just scheduled today, so we're super excited about that. Put one under contract, which, in this market is exciting because there's a lot of realtors struggling out there right now,
Yep.
So, but you seem to stay busy. You're pretty popular.
We make it work somehow.
Make it work somehow. So with that said, Bob, tell me. I'm curious on. You just went from the home inspection business. I know you're a serial entrepreneur, but you decided to open a whole new company called Coastal Marine Group. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So we saw a need after Hurricane Ian, just the neighborhood I lived in, that there was so much damage to everybody's docks. And me having a background in carpentry and being a licensed general contractor, I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to buy a barge and start building docks and repairing them. And she said, "You idiot." True story. I said, "Just trust me, it'll work." And my famous second words, right? Just trust me, everything's going to work out. And that's how we got into it. But we also realized, as throughout doing home inspections, we realized that the dock is such a big part of a home purchase for people who intend on using it. And if it is not in adequate condition, it's really bad for the consumer. And we wanted to kind of go to bat for the consumer a little more and the agents who don't have that thorough inspection company to go as deep as we do in docks.
From our perspective, Lone and I sell more homes that are waterfront than anything else down here, right? I'm a boat captain. I love selling waterfront homes. That's our bread and butter. And I think one of the number one questions, or most of the questions, are around the dock and around the seawall and all that stuff. Those are where all the question marks are. Because by the time people buy a home down here, they've bought and sold several homes, right? And they get down here and they're like, everything inside the home they're pretty comfortable with, but they're coming down here for the lifestyle. But that part they don't necessarily know about. And you opening that up and having that expertise has been really helpful.
It's a big unknown, and that is a fact. Most people are not used to living on the water, especially on the saltwater in Southwest Florida. It's a little different animal than perhaps a lake, back home in Michigan or Minnesota. Yep.
Well, we'll get more into that because I got some questions regarding that. But how do you manage two different businesses?
Well, a little fun fact, we manage 4 businesses. We own Harrison's Pest Control, as well as Smart Environmental Solutions, which is a mold remediation company. And all the dock company, Coastal Marine Group, and Smart Environmental Solutions came out of after Hurricane Ian. We just saw a need in our community, and just with the talent pool we have, already doing mold inspections, we knew that would be easy enough for us to, since we're writing protocols for licensed mold remediators, we fired up our license for that. And so we're licensed mold remediators as well. And so, how am I able to manage all these companies? A good team. And that's just a simple fact. My wife, who I always give a lot of credit to, is an accountant. And so she kind of keeps me in line, and she's she's more of a business type accountant. So she sets up all of our insurances so we can do everything the right way with licensure and everything required insurance wise. So that's really she's my boss. She's the gal behind the scenes, and I can't afford her because she's an accountant, but she's the one who keeps everything moving forward.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Heck yeah, that is very unique. And so her personality is likes diving into the books and doing all the numbers and running that back end of the businesses.
Yeah,
huh?
that's good and bad.
That's good and bad. Yeah, well, I've worked with my wife for 20 plus years, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And we're still married, so I'll just high five to that.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Let's go. Heck yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, so how long have you lived in Southwest Florida?
More than 35 years.
Jeez.
Yep.
So you're a Florida cracker, because I define Florida cracker. Tell me if you agree with this. After 20 years, you're a Florida cracker.
I've been here a long time. I've seen it all. So yeah, I'll jump on that ship too. Yeah.
You're a Florida cracker. So what's your, why did you move to Southwest Florida, and what do you find yourself doing?
Same reason everybody else does. I did a little schooling here when I was younger, a trade school for a hot minute, and I went back to Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, it's very cold. And so a good buddy of mine, he had an opportunity down here to live with his mom, and who I was talking to yesterday. So we decided to move from Wisconsin many, many, many years ago. There's a whole story behind that. You got a second for it?
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it. I got to hear it.
So me being a serial entrepreneur, I had worked for potato farms as a kid, right? I was like maybe 15 years old, and we worked for this farmer, and we put in a 19-hour day. And because this machinery he was implementing, he was a college kid. He was like 25, and he was running his dad's multi-million-dollar potato farm, right? The tech they were putting behind farming back in the days and packaging potatoes was really, really high level. And so he couldn't get this machinery to work, and he begged us to stay. And we stayed 19 hours, my longest work day ever. And I said, "You owe us." And he said, "Sleep in. We're going to give everybody a quarter raise, a big raise." And so he owed me a solid, right? Kind of interesting. And so after working some other jobs through my life, I had this opportunity to move down to Florida with my buddy. And he goes, how much money do you have? I have $160 in my pocket, right? And he's like, well, I got $300. That's not even going to put enough gas in my car to get down there, right? He said, we got to make a little money. And he goes, do you know anyone selling Christmas trees? I worked in shearing Christmas trees my whole life. So that same farmer worked 19 hours for, we found out they bought 40 acres at this corner spot, and there was Christmas trees all over it, and they're going to plow them under for springtime and plant more potatoes. And I went up to Bill. I said, hey, Bill, I'd love to buy some of those trees from you. What are you going to do with them? He said, we're going to plow them under for potatoes. And he goes, I'll sell them to you $0.25 a tree. So that was the payback.
Wow.
So we made $1,000 in a weekend selling Christmas trees in Wisconsin to get down here, and threw a beer party or two to make it down. So, back in the days, that's what you did. You throw a beer party, sell cups. And so I think we came down with like $1,200 over a weekend. So once again, being the serial entrepreneur, that's what we did. Yep.
Wow. Well, that kind of segues into my next question, because I understand you're a Packers fan.
Mm.
So how do you think that this offseason's going, and what's going to happen with the Packers this year?
It's always interesting because a couple of years ago when Jordan Love really, really did a great job, it's interesting to watch and see. And so, fun fact is, I went to my first Packer game last year, ever.
Really?
At Lambeau, yeah. So I grew up with, very poor, single mom, and so we just didn't get to do those kinds of things. And so this past year, and thankfully I worked hard, and so this past year I was at my parents' house, and my stepdad's family has tickets. I had like 4 tickets. And he goes, what game do you guys want to go to? And we said the San Francisco 49ers and the Packers. And we went up there in November, and it was such a great, great football game. So if anybody has a chance to get up there and just watch their team with the Packers, it's so cool and fun. But I hope they do well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers possibly retiring with the team? How do you feel about Aaron Rodgers? That's got to be a...
So it's interesting. I mean, he's obviously done a great job throughout the years, and he had to sit on the bench a long time behind Brett Favre. And so I think it'll be exciting no matter what. And you remember he went to the Jets, his first play of the game. He lost his Achilles, I think, his Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a buzzkill. I just kind of wanted to see how he would, perform and do. But I heard there's talks of him maybe going to the Steelers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's holding out on a contract or something, and the Steelers are kind of like freaking out, whatever. So my understanding is, if he comes back to the Pack, I mean, if he retires with the Packers, it's just a day. It's just a ceremonial type thing. He doesn't actually play for him. He just
More than likely, that's how that usually goes down.
signs a one-day contract. Well, that's interesting because I didn't really realize that, but it's still kind of cool that they want to honor him that way.
He did bring a Vince Lombardi trophy back to Lambeau, so. Yep.
Heck yeah, and he backed up Brett Favre, and then made a name for himself, so that's pretty huge. You said you've lived down here for 35 years. What else do you do for fun and things when you're down here?
Anything and everything. I'm a big boater, fisherman, and just being outdoors. And if you can tell, I'm have some nice color right now. The Florida Keys are great. Just Florida's a great place. My son spends a lot of time up in the springs. He's a free diver, so he's in these little caverns diving down, and it scares the life out of us watching him squeeze through these small holes. But we've raised them that way to be scuba divers and all this fun stuff. And so we like going up there because it's really nice. I don't know if you've done the Ginny Springs area.
No, that's something I've wanted to do.
Itchatuckney. He knows all the back roads up there, so it's fun to do that as well.
So you said he goes down and squeezes in those caverns and things. And he's doing that free diving?
Yep.
Wow.
So when we're in the Keys lobstering, we're sometimes up to 30 feet down with scuba tanks, and you'll turn around and out of nowhere he's GoProing you just sitting there, and it's always scary because there's just a human right there next to you, right? And I'm like, go back up, get some air, bud, But he can hold his breath for a solid 3 minutes.
Holy moly. Yeah. So he can crush some fish if he goes down. Does he spearfish?
No, he's become more of a sightseer.
Okay, all right. What about you? You used to spearfish, right?
I used to take off every Wednesday to go fish and spearfish. And just as time went by and it got so sharky, I'm telling you, fighting shark to keep your catch, it kind of started to get old. But it's like riding a bike. Every time I go back out with my buddies, I want to do it again right away. But that's what Southwest Florida has to offer.
Sure. So do you spend your time on the water regular fishing, or do you spearfish, or what do you?
Yeah, majority now regular offshore fishing more than anything. We have a flats boat too. My boys do that more, and I'll enter in tournaments and stuff, but not so much. I like my time offshore more.
Okay. Yep. All right. So you're getting offshore quite a bit here lately, or what?
A little more. We compete in tournaments too, and the last tournament, a red grouper tournament the tournament is off duty series. It's some firemen that throw on this tournament. They throw on a red grouper tournament and a American red snapper tournament. And so last tournament we took second in, so we got the big check, and we're on stage. So my same group of fishermen, we're going out for this AR tournament coming up here June 28th or something like that. So
nice.
We like tournament fishing too. So
heck yeah. Well, what do I got to do to get invited on that boat, on that team?
You just got to make sure you can't get sick and know how to tie knots, bud. Real good. There's no coming home.
Because you go out for a while. It's a long trip.
It is a long day. Yep.
How far off do you have to go to do that?
It depends. Usually it's anywhere from 80 to 120 miles.
Okay. So you leave when it's dark in the morning?
We live at dark time, yep. Yeah, like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
We got to run about 3 hours, so.
That sounds fun, actually. So, did you see the DeSantis extended the red snapper season, the American red snapper season to, not American red snapper, just Gulf red snapper to 126 days?
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
That's great. I think that, the regular anglers deserve a chance to catch some fish. I wish they would up the bag limit a little more. In Venice, Louisiana, which we go and fish there in their fishery, in New Orleans on a regular basis, and I think you can keep 4 over there, because by the time you burn all the fuel to get out to where they're at, which is usually deeper water, 130 feet plus, to come home with 2 fish per person is not very great.
Right.
I would take a smaller season to bag more fish.
Okay.
Yep.
I get it. Oh, that makes sense. So how often do you get up there to that area?
We usually try and go once a year. My buddy keeps his boat up there, and that's where we're fishing for yellowfin tuna, as well as the American red snapper. We will fill a cooler with those fish.
Well, one of the advantages to living down here 35 years is you've got quite a few connections. It seems like every time I talk to you, you're like my buddy over here, my buddy over there.
Yeah.
So
it's a good community. The fishing community is good. You just got to know how to tie lines and hold your own on a boat, and you always get invited back.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. The other thing I was excited about, I wanted to see what you thought about before we dive into this home inspection stuff, is do you see where DeSantis signed the Freedom Act? So for those watching, my interpretation is that law enforcement has to have probable cause. They can't just pull you over. And I know you've probably experienced this, but where you're just out and then all of a sudden right next to you is a law enforcement boat and they're boarding you and doing their checks and stuff, making sure you got all this, that, and the other. And now I agree with, being safe on the water for sure. I love that. But I also a guy who very much enjoys our freedoms. And I think that law enforcement should have probable cause, but you need to be doing something wrong before they just pull you over and do something. So I'm pretty excited about that. What's your thoughts on the whole Freedom Act?
So I agree with that. It's everything you said. Now, if I'm coming in with a bunch of fishing poles and I get pulled over, but maybe FWC is different. I encourage that because there are a lot of people who do not respect the fisheries, and we have to respect the fisheries. That goes without being said. But there's this one time I was pulled over, and we're going back many, many years, probably 15, 20 years ago even, and we got pulled over with 6 other boats at the same time going under a bridge, and I was idling under the bridge, and this guy was hot. He was intimidating everybody. He was yelling at everybody and conducting himself very unprofessionally with regards to being in law enforcement. So he's picking a fight, trying to escalate with everybody, and it was very, very clear. And so he came into my boat, and I said, I understand you're doing your job, but I don't appreciate you pulling 6 of us over. You see, I got my family. We're all sweating here. We're waiting for you to come and tell us what we did wrong and move on to where we're going in our destination. But you're holding all of us hostage. I think that you should be only pulling one boat over if there's an issue, but I didn't see an issue with every boat that came through here. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a free McDonald's ice cream cone and said, sorry for the inconvenience.
What?
Yeah. So, I am on board with that. Listen, if you're driving a vessel extremely intoxicated and maybe potentially you're gonna hurt somebody, yes, you got to pull those guys on over. But for people who are just out enjoying the day, having their time monopolized by perhaps nonsense is not cool. So I agree with you.
So it sounds like you enjoy what most of our customers are moving down here for is the waterfront life. You live on the water?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was a dream come true for me too. So
yeah, that's I live on a golf course now, and Lona and I keep talking. Well, more so me. I'm like, I want to live on the water, and she's not so sold on it. But what's been your experience? How long have you lived on the water?
Since 2020. So going on after this year about 5 years, and it is so incredible to jump in your boat. I just went to the Keys. I jumped in my boat, and I took my boat down to the Keys for fishing this past week. I mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah.
And that's just the coolest level of freedom. And I don't care who you are. When you can jump in your boat and just go, that's where it's at for me. So
heck yeah. So you went to the Keys this past weekend. How long did the trip take to get down there?
On good calm days, for me, from Sanibel Bridge, 2.5 hours. And then coming back, it was really pretty windy and bumpy, so it took me 5 hours. But I have autopilot, and we just hit that and kick our feet up on the dash and listen to good music and just make our way home.
Sure. The autopilot's a game changer, huh?
It helps a lot, yeah.
So you said 2 hours on the way down?
2.5, yeah.
2.5. What kind of boat you have?
We got a 34 Fountain with triples on it, so it'll cruise about 52 comfortably. And for all the fishing we do around here, it's just great to have that kind of configuration. So if you're going to fish the way I do, that size boat really helps. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Nice. What size did you say it was? I'm sorry.
34.
34 foot. Okay. Yeah, because people ask me all the time, what's the ideal size boat? And I'm like, well, what are you going to be doing on it? I usually tell them around 30-some feet is a really good size. So let's dive into like the home inspection side of things while you're here, because there's a lot of value that you can add there. I have one last question before we jump into home inspections. So how often do you make it back to Wisconsin?
I go minimally every year.
Okay. And what do you just go back to visit family? Do you got a place back here? What's the story?
So there's a brisket contest that my family puts on every year. And so a couple of years I won it. So now I'm obligated to go try and win it every year. My son-in-law beat me last year, so there's some good talking back and forth going on throughout the year as we make briskets. We send videos and of course, talk crap to one another.
Yeah, I like to smoke meat too, so I'm interested in that. What kind of smoker do you have?
So I have a Masterbuilt. It's a vertical smoker where you can get this big hopper where you can put chunks of wood versus a pellet type style grill or electric smoker. I find that I get more smoke on my meats, and I'll smoke everything from ribs, chicken, and briskets, of course.
Okay. Do you smoke down here and up in Wisconsin? Just out here?
Yeah, I had to buy a smoker for up there to compete. Yep.
Wow, awesome. That's interesting. So I'm gonna have to get some smoking tips from you then, because I've been smoking meat and I'm decent at it. But man, if you're winning contests, I bet you got some things to share.
It's really amazing how easy it is. And I tried. I'm working with this sous vide recipe right now, where you smoke the meat and then you vacuum seal it, and then you sous vide it. Which I don't know if you know what sous vide is, where you heat the meat in a pot of water, basically. Heat the water to 155 degrees, and we let it sit there for 24 hours. And so your brisket that is done and has gone through the smoking process and has been vacuum sealed and even frozen, you take it on out and put it in this water, and then you warm it back up that way, and it's just as fresh as if it came off the smoker. So we're messing with that to see if we can get the perfect, most moist brisket out there. So I got one more time, but I've done it 2 other times, and it's turned out pretty good.
So you're testing it. So you're like
Yes.
a chemist or a scientist, but you're using, you're smoking meat instead.
Yeah.
Discover Community Lending, founded in 2014 in Lee County, Florida, under the leadership industry veteran Deanna Adinolfo Rivera. With over a decade of experience, Deanna and her team have earned more than 3,000 local 5-star reviews, reflecting their commitment to exceptional service. Dedicated to enriching Florida communities, Community Lending actively supports local nonprofits through donations of time, talent, and resources. Believing that homeownership is the key to generational wealth, Deanna strives to help families navigate the mortgage process with ease. Let Community Lending make your home financing journey simple and hassle-free. And that's why we recommend Community Lending. Our clients love them.
So the next segment that questions I have is regarding the most common mistakes that you see from your side of things, because obviously from a real estate side or a realtor side, we see things, but your perspectives, I feel like it's all different, right? Because you're not necessarily working with the client every day like we are, but you go in and you got just this whole different perspective on it. So what's the most common mistakes that you see in a home inspection?
I think it has to do with communication, and primarily I think it has to do with the type of agent people are working with, people who haven't perhaps been mentored thoroughly enough to realize that there are going to be things that come up in a home inspection, and having the ability to communicate well. To me, the best of the best realtors out there are the ones that can communicate through challenges and problems with the home. And that's the biggest problem I see. Because when it comes to anybody buying a house, right? Mm-hmm. I always put it in perspective this way. If it was one of my children buying this house, I'd want them to be very well informed. And from there, we can have the conversations on how do we go about moving forward. And everything is fixable. Ultimately, it just comes with a price.
Sure.
If you can get through that hurdle, that takes away all the problems.
Well, and then your background kind of in the construction side and knowing how to, that side of things, you can also give that unique perspective on, well, hey, that's not that big of a deal, right?
Yep. And genuinely, we can give that, hey, this is not a big deal. But one thing we do different from a lot of other companies is we have a field manager. We allocate a certain percentage of our overhead towards having somebody call within 24 hours, every client, to just say, hey, Mrs. Jones, we're just checking on you, making sure that if you have any questions regarding the report, we can answer those questions for you. And that helps a lot, because from there, their concerns, they understand them better coming from us, more so sometimes than the actual real estate agent.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and when they ask me, I'm like, hey, you need to ask your inspector on that, right? Because, I mean, I've renovated properties, and I feel like I got a good amount of knowledge when it comes to that stuff, but it's always good to have, your opinion on it for the clients, So that's good. Is there something like, obviously when people buy down here in Southwest Florida, it's unique. We have a unique market. We have unique things that we have to deal with down here versus Wisconsin or Kentucky or, Ohio, where I'm from. So what are those like top, is there certain things in a home inspection that you see come up more than anything?
Yeah. So, we do we have pools, we have docks, and we got a hot, humid climate. Some of these things are a little different from, perhaps, once again, you mentioned Kentucky. You're not going to be in a swimming pool. You're not going to live on the salt water for sure. So some of these things are a little different. And our hot, humid climate we're prone to, of course, indoor air quality issues with regards to mold. And so these are some of the things where we really shine, because we kind of understand them, and we understand what it takes to make the home, in good working order. So those are the things that we're able to walk clients through, probably better than any other home inspection company.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because one thing that I see you do and I really admire about you is how well you network with other home inspectors, by the way. You're friends with the home inspectors, and you get together with several of the other home inspectors in the area, and you work together and you mastermind, right?
We do. And the reason behind that is, and not every inspector has that mindset, but inspectors that have built companies understand that in order for us to shape the services that are provided to the real estate community, they should be at this level, this standard that I contribute a lot to be at, and I evolve to higher standards, because it's an effort to provide better services for the consumer. And so, and it's great that we do have a bunch of those guys. And even when the hurricanes hit, we sat down, I want to say 4 or 5 of those companies, big companies, we're all multi-million-dollar inspection companies. And so we have staff to keep busy. And so during the hurricanes, what are you doing? They asked me what I'm doing. I said, well, I'm paying my staff to sit at home. And I'll have a plan in a couple weeks. And so in those 2 weeks, we got together and came up with how we could serve the community. And we came up with these damage assessments. So after a hurricane, we decided, hey, we're going to set up damage assessments, which are often covered by insurance. And I'll tell you what, everybody that had that done got their money quicker with regards to the insurance company, because they had documentation to present to the insurance company. The people who didn't are still fighting with their insurance company, and that's just a simple fact. So the damage assessment side of it saved a lot of people. It kept our guys busy, so it was a win-win for the community. But that's the kind of synergy you can create with community and your fellow tradespeople, home inspectors.
I don't know much about that, so you're educating me on this whole damage assessment. So is that what you call it? That type of inspection is called a damage assessment?
Yeah. So we're inspecting for wind-driven rain. That primarily is the biggest part of that inspection, and we will find it around windows and door openings, because the wind's blowing sideways at 150 miles an hour. It's getting into your walls,
Sure.
So it's a big problem. And then we do an interior and exterior damage assessment, depending on what region you were in and how much damage. You may only need an exterior assessment. Somebody will walk your roof, take a look at if you lost any soffit or anything, and document it for the insurance company.
Oh, really cool.
Or for the client to present to their insurance company. So interior, exterior damage assessment. Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
And you said the insurance often pays for that?
Yes.
Well, shoot. I might need to get that next time a hurricane rolls through, it sounds like.
Yep.
I didn't have much damage. I did have damage when Hurricane-Harden came through. We lost part of our pool cage and then some landscaping. But overall, we did way better than most people. Well, the roof. Sorry, I did have to replace the roof, but it was an old roof, and we kind of expect that. But, man, I should have just called you and had you all come out and do a damage assessment versus having that, the guy from the insurance company who comes out and...
Public adjuster, yep.
Yeah, because I don't feel like those guys are working for you.
We hire attorneys now. It's that part has gotten a little tough to deal with. Insurance companies, they just now more so we're still having to deal with that because we were getting subpoenaed into, not subpoenaed, but where they want our information for claims that clients have put against them, and it's still happening. It's still coming. So any information when it comes to insurance companies, always have as much documentation as you can, as much photos as you can have, because that becomes evidence for your case when you need to say, hey, I'm sorry, Mr. Insurance Company, I've been paying you for 20 years. It's time for you to write a check for us because we actually have a hurricane claim, so our wind claim.
Holy cow. Yep. That's a serious game changer. I know what I'm doing. You're on my speed dial now, buddy. I mean, you're already on my speed dial for my clients, but like that's an extra assurance for after a hurricane. I love that. Freaking love that. I have all my clients call you now.
Okay.
That's amazing. I just don't think you can document it better than a home inspector. You're already set up for it. You know what to do. Come and take the pictures. You know what you're looking for. Regular home owner doesn't know, what to look for. They won't know. They won't know if there's moisture in the walls and stuff, and you can find that. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
I love it. You said you lived here on the water since 2020, so you've been through the hurricanes literally on the water. What's been your experience living on the water during the hurricanes? What's the biggest things that you learned?
So being a boater, if you've got someplace to store your boat, get it off your lift. You don't want it behind your house unless you really know what you're doing. My big boat, I put it on a trailer and I took it up to someplace where I store it, and it's really expensive, but it's the cost of actually detailing your boat after a hurricane is just as much as paying to store it somewhere for a hurricane. Mm-hmm. And a lot of your insurance plans will require you to have a hurricane plan for your boat if it's high dollar boat. So you want to make sure you're very aware of that. Just get it off your water, put it someplace safe for sure. The other thing is documenting is very good. If you have any pictures of your house, once again, pre-hurricane, insurance companies are very weird about the condition of the home, and they just want to say no to everything. So if you have documentation on stuff, it's good. But for me, I have a home that was built after 2006. So my home is hurricane resistant. So I'm in a more safe atmosphere as far as, my home and the condition of it. Whereas if you do not have hurricane impact windows and some of these things, you might want to go find shelter. You can always rebuild your house, but Ian was very treacherous, as you know, for our community. The flooding was really bad. I have a 2-story home, so everything that I do as far as decision-making for my family, I knew we were okay. And Ian was as bad as it gets so far for us. And so I say a lot of common sense. Check your yard, make sure anything that can float away or blow away, have it secured, put away somewhere. Just go through your home and make sure you have your dock boxes away from the water. Anything that you can do to prepare for high winds and high water.
You said dock boxes away from the water?
Yeah, so they don't float off, everything, you store a bunch of stuff in your dock boxes on the
storage
dock.
boxes. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. That makes
Furniture, anything that can blow or float away, just get it out of there.
Okay. So those are the biggest things you found living through the three last hurricanes, right? Since 2020. Did you get any flooding where you're at?
Yeah, we did, but our elevation of our home is adequate enough to keep water from coming in. It came right to our front door, though. But a lot of the neighbors, I live in near the Rose Garden in Southwest, and a lot of the homes that were built prior to, a little older, they flooded. They had probably about 2 feet of water in some of them, so they got flooded pretty good.
Yeah, there was quite a few homes that we have seen that did get flooded. In fact, we ended up renovating one, had it remediated, did it the right way and stuff. And in fact, you guys came out and did the inspection for the mold to clear it. I guess I want to go that direction because one of the things that we seen was there were so many properties at that point in time after Hurricane Ian specifically, I think. Maybe you correct me on that if one of the other hurricanes was worse, but was there more homes flooded after Ian than the other hurricanes, or do you think one of the other hurricanes was worse in terms of flooding?
Yeah, Ian for our area, but the water did get high up for people in some different areas of Cape Coral in general, but Ian was a big one. The sustained winds lasted for 8 hours, so that water just kept pushing up and up and up, and so that's that amount of flooding is something I don't believe we've ever seen in our community.
I agree. Actually, before Hurricane Ian, I was kind of silly to the fact that it could that we could flood. I mean, me and some buddies,
Everybody.
we thought, Cape Coral's safe because we're on the inside of these islands, and we're 10 feet above sea level, things like that. And just my buddies were like, yeah, we'll never flood here. We're good. We're not leaving during a hurricane and stuff like that. I haven't left during a hurricane, but I also don't live in a flood zone, right? So did you leave at all during any of the hurricanes, or did you stay?
No, I stay because once again, my home is it's a hurricane resistant. It has all the wind ratings and impact windows and stuff, and a second story. So I knew that I could always go upstairs if the flooding got so terribly bad. But I agree with your friends. I mean, I was here for Charlie. The length of time that the eye wall sat over us and just kept driving that water, pinwheeling it up the river. That's what happened. It was a very unique situation, but at least it made us very aware of, wow, this can happen now.
Sure, changed our perspective on it.
Sure did, yeah.
Yeah, definitely changed my beliefs on it. So I actually seen one of the pictures that you had posted on Facebook. I don't know how old it was. This might have been a while ago, but you had like a golf cart in front of your front door and a generator inside the house.
That was inside my house. My wife left town, and so I was home alone, and I'm like, well, I'll protect the house the way I see fit. So
your wife left town too, huh?
She left. She just doesn't, she doesn't like dealing without, the comforts of a warm shower and cable TV. And I said, that's fine. I got the house. So, yeah.
Did she regret it? Will she still leave during future hurricanes, you think? Or
I think for her sanity and mental health, it's good for her. For me, I don't mind taking cold showers. I have a business to run. I have Starlink, so everything I need to do. And primarily, I stay back more to take care of my staff and people. And once we're taking care of them, we start taking care of the community.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole take care of the community part, too, on top of that, after you and your employees and things are taken care of. The biggest thing I think we've seen after the Hurricane Ian specifically, was all the rebuilding and how people just didn't seem to be doing it right? Specifically, there was just so many, like when we go in with a buyer, we're like, you got to be careful, right? You need to know that when they put this house back together, they did it the right way. I learned so much through that whole mold remediation process and working with you guys. Like I said, you guys came in and did the inspection on it to make sure that there was no mold and all that other stuff in there, that was done the right way. So elaborate on that. What did you see after the hurricane as it related to mold and rebuilding and things like that? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you bring this up because this is such useful information to the whole industry. There is a certain protocol to not only remediating, wet material out of your home, which is going to turn into mold sooner or later. We have seen many homes where you can't tell at all from the inside that there was water in the home until you open up that drywall, and it's even if you had an inch of water in there, and it's seeped up the wall, and now you've got 2 foot of mold, and it just keeps on growing in this warm, humid cavity, right? Because the air conditioning has been off for so long. Next thing you know, you have to gut the whole house, from floor to ceiling. And so that's what happens when you have this level of water intrusion. But we've seen a lot of people, if they're flipping houses or even home sellers, who said, we didn't get any water in here, and we come on in with our equipment and we find moisture all over the place. So, and unfortunately, that does happen. We just did one, I want to say about 2 months ago. The seller said that the house had been remediated properly. And so to get back to this process, when you have a remediation that's done properly, you remove all porous materials 2 feet above where they were wet. So if you got 1 foot of wet drywall, you go up 3 feet. Since you're going up 3 feet, might as well go up 4 feet because a sheet of sheetrock is how big?
4 feet.
4 feet,
yeah.
Right? So we went into this one house, and I want to say they flooded after Helene or Milton, one of those two that brought a bunch of water. The contractor who remediated properly, he put 1 foot baseboard to cover everything. And it was a well-known contractor in this town. I was amazed. And, of course, they came knocking on my door like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sorry, we're doing our job. So you have to be really careful. You should have actual documentation, photos. You should have what are called, you document the relative humidity of the actual wood to know that it's dry, and now we're at build-back status. So you go through this process of removing all the material, drying out there. That's where you see the fans and all of the equipment used to bring down the level of humidity in the home. Make sure there's no indoor air quality issues as well. Test for it, and all of your wood, your walls, your base plates for your walls should be dry So before you start putting sheetrock back on, because if you put the sheetrock back on while all that wood is still wet, it starts growing mold again. And so you got that warm, humid wall cavity, and it just starts growing mold. So that's why we did a Build Back Ready type program back in the day, where we encouraged builders like, hey, go ahead and do all your demo. Let us come on in and make sure everything is dry and tested before you build back. We'll give you certificates as you're Build Back Ready. Because imagine this, you as a homeowner and seller, you're going to sell your home sooner or later. You want to give the new buyer, the confidence that, here's all the paperwork. I did it right. And here's the steps I took. So it's important for people to, and listen, reach out to me. I'll give you all the information we have on it. You should get to a Build Back Ready status, so your home is not going to be a mold issue down the road after you've bought it.
Okay.
Yep.
When you talked about the age of your house, you said 2006. That sounds important, the way you said it. What was it specifically about 2006?
And I was in construction in 2002 prior. So around 2002, and this was after Hurricane Andrew, the Florida Building Code came out with a home hardening approach to residential construction. And that included impact windows or shutters, wind-rated garage doors minimally, or impact-rated garage doors, side doors, everything minimally having a wind rating as far as a solid surface panel. Any glazed opening was required to be either covered with a shutter or impact-rated. Miami-Dade. And so in the end of 2002, coming into 2003, every home had to meet this new FBC, Florida Building Code compliance or standard, which was a good thing for our community because Hurricane Andrew destroyed Miami, and that's where they came up with these better codes for us. So when you are home shopping, it is a really nice feature when you do have these things in place. It is added value. It might not make sense to you at the time, but if you're comparing home A to home B, having those constructive features could save your life, perhaps, But 2003 is when it all started.
Part of that was elevation of the home was a little bit higher. Was that part of it too?
Yeah, I think the elevation went up, and I can't remember the number on that as well. Yep.
Okay, cool.
And even more so since.
Interesting. So, is there anything else as it relates to home inspections when you come in that? I mean, you mentioned the high humidity and things like that. Now we're talking about hurricane protections. Let's stay on that just for a second longer. You mentioned the windows. What else is things that you would look for in terms of hurricane protection to be prepared for it?
So when I bought my house on the water, it checked all the boxes for me. So it had that. But another thing that it had stucco ceilings on the lanai area. So not only for just pressure washing, you can't pressure wash, drywall. That stucco will never go anywhere. And even after Hurricane Ian, we lost all of our soffit on our second floor. What I did was I invested in putting hardy siding on my second floor soffit because it's really hard to get to. First floor I haven't changed out only because it weathered through Ian, and it's on the first floor. It's easier to get to. But that second floor, some home builders will stucco soffits. If you have an opportunity to stucco the soffits, those are areas that can get up under your roof. What happened in my case, it got up under and it sucked all the insulation out of my second floor. My wife was freaking out. Like, she stayed for Ian, by the way.
Okay.
So now I know when she wants to go out of town, I'm like, please go, because she was freaking out. She said, "Are you sure these windows are impact rated?" It's kind of what I do, honey. I'm a home inspector. Yes, they're impact rated. So these are some things, constructive features as far as making sure that the roof will stay on. But once again, those homes that are built after 2003, they're adequate as far as the tie downs, depending on the age of the roof. So that's another thing you want to look at. What is the age of your roof? If you have a 15-year-old roof, that's a 50-50. You might lose it if you have an Ian type hurricane. Metal roofs are great. If you have a home with a metal roof, that's money all day long. That's a safe roof for the most part. Tile roofs are even not that bad. It's just when you have these older roofs that perhaps it could be an issue for you.
So you feel like the metal roofs held the best through the hurricanes?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot more of them now because we know this, and that's my new roof that I put on as a stand-in seam roof that we put on. These are things that I don't want to have to worry about. I'd rather enjoy my time fishing and boating versus a new, a roof being destroyed on my house or my wife being unhappy. So we made the investment in a metal roof, but yeah, they stand up well.
Yeah, and then when the shingles blow off and the water starts coming in, That's a fear. Like my bathroom did start leaking during Hurricane Ian, and I just remember hearing my daughter going, "Water's coming in the ceiling in the bathroom," and went back there, and it was leaking through like one of the recessed lights. So we went back with a metal roof, and just so happy we did, just for that sake of feel better. I don't think when we were driving around after Hurricane Ian, we didn't see any metal roofs damaged except for in like Matt Lachey, where like they must have been 100 years old. You could see the rust on these things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But other than that, like everybody else that we've seen had metal roofs had no damage. So
they perform well. Yep.
Yeah, it's good to hear you say that. So when you talked about straps, I just want to clarify for everybody watching, you're talking about the hurricane, the hurricane straps on the roof that holds it down to the foundation?
Yeah. So the hurricane, which you get credit for in a wind mitigation, the hurricane strap that holds your truss system down to your wall.
Okay. Now you said wind mitigation. Everybody asked me, should I get a wind mitigation? Your answer.
Absolutely 100%. What it does for you is it reduces your 99% of the time, it will reduce your insurance cost. It also allows you to shop your insurance with multiple carriers. And that's really what you want, because you want, if you limit yourself and just use whoever owned the house prior, their insurance, they're going to charge you what they want to charge you. Mm-hmm. Whereas you get your own wind mitigation updated with your name on it, you can now shop all the carriers. So yeah, we actually have, we don't take no for an answer. We include it in all of our packages. Hey, this is the price for a home inspection. P.S. You're going to get a wind mitigation, because we for us to come back, here you are at the middle of closing. Why didn't you do one? Well, the buyer was adamant that we don't do it. And it's like, here we are. We got one day to get an inspector out to get a wind mitigation done. And we're like, we're looking out for you guys, the consumer, so. I
love it. We actually tell all of our customers, definitely get the wind mitigation, because it's going to help you. And it's good to hear you say that. So let's talk more about go into the waterfront, the dock inspections and things like that. We've seen so many docks destroyed. I'm like, man, this is going to take years and years to rebuild all these docks, because it seemed like everybody's dock was destroyed or had some sort of damage to it. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons one of the big things that you've seen after the hurricane, and that you could solve that need, right?
Yes.
And so is there anything anyone can do to harden their dock or anything like that?
Yep. Yeah. So we have what's called a better built dock now. And so these are for houses that are on the river. The river on the Cape Coral side got destroyed. And even some of our new docks got destroyed, along with everybody else's. So we got smart, and we figured out a better way to build docks for these, what I would call high surf type areas where, the waves are just relentless. We're building with a SureFlow. We're building a commercial dock with SureFlow decking. And that's, I don't know if you've seen it, it's that gray decking that has all the oval holes in it, so water can come in it. There's no lift on it, right?
Uh-huh.
And we double bolt everything. So it's basically a commercial dock. And unfortunately, people had paid twice for docks. They're done just rebuilding at current standards. They're now doing them at commercial grade levels where, they're going to be there now. So we build with 10-inch pilings. We build with larger stringers, more additional bolting throughout it. So our whole intention is for that dock knock to lift or raise or shift, and a lot more X-bracing. So that's how we do that. Now, that doesn't mean every dock needs to be done that way. It's just in these high surf areas. And maybe, I don't know if you know where the kidneys, they call them the kidneys in Cape Coral. They're near Dolphin Road and Bayshore. They're just these oval type pieces of property on the river where, you got a bunch of houses on them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them entries coming into those waterways, if you're along that route, that's something you'd want to do as well. But areas where you've got protected harborage, there's you don't have these waves coming from the river directly at you. That's where we just build a regular dock for you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So if you're inland a little bit on a canal, it's not necessarily that big of a issue.
Not at all. Yep.
But if you're on the river, now that you say that, I went. We were showing a customer a home on the river, and I think I seen a dock like that. And is it like a grate you can see through it?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Anything else that you do the docks to harden them, or any other advice that?
Yeah. So, something interesting enough is there's two things about the industry that, once we started in it was all dock builders, they don't wrap the pilings all the way to seabed. great job security, and it's you can look at it two ways. One is the client perhaps doesn't want to pay to have divers dive underwater and put piling wrap all the way down. So some areas, as far as dockage, the canals can be as much as 12 to 15 feet deep. And we just always option the client, like, hey, your best investment is to wrap these pilings to the seabed because they'll last forever. And I'm convinced for sure 80 years, because every piling that we've pulled for a demo, everything that's in the seabed, it's like petrified. There's no shipworms. Are you familiar with shipworms?
No, I guess not. I don't know what shitworms are.
They're termites of the sea. They eat the piling. So you have all these little holes in the piling, just like you would a truss that's been infested with termites. And that's what takes out these pilings. And so every now and then you'll see during a low tide, you'll see these pilings. They'll look like two pencils touching together.
Yep, seen that.
That's the shipworms that have eaten the entire piling. Now, had they originally wrapped the piling from the top down all the way into the seabed, the shipworms don't get in there. So we have commercial divers where if the dock is too old, I just let people know you just wait until the dock fails and then redo it. It's not worth your money to do this. It's a 20-year-old dock. We're not going to be able to save it. Mm-hmm. But if you got like a 10-year-old dock, we can scrape the pilings, we seal them to take all the oxygen out of the pile, killing the shipworms, and then we wrap it. And from there, that piling will continue to survive many, many years. So.
You threw out a number. Did you say 80 years or 50 years? Did I hear that?
Yeah, 50 to 80 years, no problem at all. All the dock pilings that we pulled at 25 years that are still in the ground, there's no rot on them at all. Not even a little bit. Yeah. But you can see, and then when you take off the piling wrap where it's actually wrapped, there's no rot whatsoever there. It's just between the piling wrap and the seabed, the area that hasn't been wrapped, it's full of shipworms and rotting out. We have samples at our shop, actually. And we have them on a business card to just kind of give a visual to people. Like the money you spend to have these things continuously wrapped down in the seabed is the best money you'll ever spend.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yep.
So do you wrap the pilings below this, like where the piling goes down into the ground? Is that wrapped too? Or?
Yeah. So it gets wiggled down into the sand and seabed. It's a skinny sheet of plastic, so it kind of slides right down the piling and down into the sand seabed. So
okay, well now I'm curious because up north, when you say you're putting in footers or whatever, or they go down to solid rock, right? Is
yep.
The what they're trying to do. What do they do here? How?
Great question, which was the second part of dock construction a lot of people don't know about. We're only required to drive them to resistance, basically where they won't go drive down anymore. Well, if you've got cap rock 2 feet in, that's as far as you're going to go, right? All of us contractors have what's called a rock exclusion in our contract. And that means you have the option, if you want us to drill through them, punch through them, the rock that is, to set your piling further. Once we get through it, so for example, it seems like the last 3 docks we built, we ran into rock. So we invested in a drill rig where we'll drill through the rock to get to the softer dirt so we can drive our piling 8 to 12 feet into the seabed. And that's what we'd suggest. And especially if you're on the river, any place where there's a lot of wave action, for sure. But Cape Coral, the reason they don't call it Cape Coral for just any reason. There's a lot of coral. And so we have the equipment to drill through it. And or we'll tip the piling with a spike. It's medieval. It's just this pointy spike, and we use a large hammer, and we just smash through the rock. And either war, depending on how hard the rock is, it usually takes about an hour to get through it. Now, there's some areas that are a few areas that we've ran into where the rock is so hard there's no sense, we have to drill through it. And sometimes it's 3 to 4 feet thick. But if I'm setting tiki pilings are really tall. So picture this, the wind will come and destroy the dock itself because there's so much uplift. So we want to drive those. So we have to let the client know, you have your options here. Mm-hmm. Prefer to do it the right way if you want this thing to last. And most times people get it and it stinks having to say, this is where we're at. Some people are, how can I say, they're a little salty, for lack of better words. Like, well, you said it was going to be this. I'm saying, well, we don't know what we're going to run into. Like, we can't charge for it until we run into it. So, and it is a change order, and we don't like doing business that way, and it's not good for the consumer. But in reality, we're at least giving them the option where other contractors they're just going to set it and forget it.
Not even worry about
not even option it. Yep, because they don't have the equipment.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting. I always wondered about that. That's very useful knowledge there. Well, is there anything else on the dock side that we haven't talked about you think is like really important that people should know?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that again. It's really important to understand the waterfront lifestyle paired with the type of boating your clients are going to get into. So I always offer up myself as a resource. Call me anytime. I have a way to measure the water depth. It's like a fishing pole with a little bottom finder. I'll come on out, throw it in the canal for you. I'll have a look at it. The worst thing is when you have to go to a home where we're going to do an estimate for somebody and they're like, yeah, we've got our 40-foot Viking twin motor. It draws 5 feet of water. And I'm like, the water's really clear right now. You got about 2 feet here and you're not going to make it down the canal. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, your boat is not going to live here.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, sometimes people who are self-proclaimed waterfront specialists, they don't put enough effort into researching all this stuff. So it's very important that clearly that your client is only going to have, let's say, a 20-foot pontoon with a 90 outboard that floats in 1 foot of water. If that's all they're going to do the rest of their lives, great. This is perfect for you. But if they have aspirations of growing into a 2-motor, 3-motor boat, something that actually needs water depth, you're going to want to be upfront with them. It's not the house for them, and there's nothing we can do about it. Mm-hmm. So they have to find another house.
I'm so glad you said that because we tell all of our clients that like, hey, we'll get you out on the water. We'll drive down the canal. We'll look at it.
That's great. Yep.
We're going to see what the water depth is, so you know what you're getting into when you buy this house because you can't change the location. You can't change the water depth. I mean, you could probably do some dredging around the dock, right?
Yeah, so we have dredging equipment as well. So, and some of them are doable. And once again, I'm not going to dredge where it's just not going to make sense for the client. But a lot of times we've got that sediment that kind of comes from the seawall back down in where it's a perfect setup for the client. And if we can usually get 2 feet out of it. And we can do that. But we won't ill-advise a client, to make a buck. It's this will help you or it's not going to help you, and it's up to you. But
we've seen a lot of seawalls collapse after the hurricanes, right?
Yep.
There's a big thing, and it took people a long time to even get them replaced because all the contractors are backed up, right?
Yep.
By the way, are you getting caught up now? How's business with that right now?
So for us, everything we do is usually within a month of permits. So everything we do is within 2 to 3 months, ultimately, because permits take about 6 weeks on average. So we're caught up on our end. The community itself is doing better. Even the big guys are doing better timeline-wise. So we're caught up as far as any kind of hurricane type stuff.
Okay. Like everybody asks, like, how much does it cost for a seawall? And I'm like, geez, that's a loaded question. So how would you answer that?
Yeah, so we subcontract out our seawalls, but we have all the information with regards to them. And it's a division that we will be opening up in the near future. So currently right now, if you're going to shore up an existing seawall that hasn't failed, but it's 50 years old and we know it's going to fail, right? That's a good time to do what we call a permanent repair. You've seen those corrugated vinyl panels. They're gray. Mm-hmm. They get elevated 2 feet above the existing cap and then get poured with a new cap and all the fills put back on in. So that's a permanent repair, and those are now called lifetime seawalls or 100-year-old 100-year warranty seawalls, because now we use stainless steel and or fiberglass for all the tiebacks. So, back in the day we used just regular iron rebar to tie everything back. So it's all corroding and failing now. All the mesh inside of the panel, the concrete panel itself is all, iron metal as well. So it's going bad, and that's why you see the spalling where you see all this cracking happening on the front. Mm-hmm. And listen, a lot of times it'll take a while for a seawall to fail. You just got to be aware of it and say, hey, we can kind of go, hey, you're going to have 5 to 10 years of no problems with this, but now it's time to start budgeting for perhaps the vinyl. And on average, it's usually about $45,000 to redo a wall and bring it up to code with that corrugated panel stuff. Standard 80-foot Cape Coral lot kind of numbers, right?
Yeah.
And most seawalls are about $60,000. So 60
to 80, did you say?
60 is a good starting point.
Okay, for a standard lot.
Yeah, for a standard lot, yep.
And that's a repair?
No, that's a new seawall.
New seawall, okay.
Yep.
For the corrugated?
It's about $45,000.
Okay, that's the number I heard. Okay. And the corrugated, is that what I seen in Matt Lachey? They're like drilling it down into the ground?
Yeah, they'll smack it. They'll jet it with water pumps, and then they'll smack it with an excavator. Just tamp it down to get level. Yep.
Is that the same thing? The same process that they do for a home? They tap that down into the ground like they did out in Matlacha, like.
Oh no. Oh. So if they're driving concrete pilings is that what you're talking about?
No, that metal. I saw them putting like metal walls down into the.
Yeah, very similar in essence. Those are actually hitting. Most times this vinyl stuff, they're just blowing the sand out of the way to get it set to where it's got to go. And what happens is, have you ever been on the beach and dug a hole and watch how quickly it fills in?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on there. Enough sediment is moved away for that panel to get down to the elevation that you need it, and then it fills right back on in. And then they tie everything on in and pour it all full of concrete.
Oh, okay.
So you don't need these big heavy drivers. I mean, you have them, but you got to remember it's vinyl. So basically, you'll tap it, small excavator, you'll tamp it right down to get to where you need to.
Interesting.
Where then you can pour the cap for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else regarding docks and seawalls?
I think that covers a lot of it. Oh yeah, give me a call if you need one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You definitely know what you're talking about, man. That's obvious. What are your 3 pieces of advice, must-dos for a buyer buying a property down here in Southwest Florida?
There are a couple of variables to that, as you can imagine. Location, right? And so that goes for, the type of school that you want your kid to be in. It goes for the type of occupation that you're going to be in with general locality. I sound like a real estate agent now, don't I? Also, depending on the lifestyle that you're going to want to have, which is the waterfront part of it. So, that for me, that's the start of the whole conversation. And then as you get into the home inspection part of it, obviously those are other things that not only, when you do a home inspection, the cool thing with our company is all of our inspectors are mold assessors, licensed mold assessors. They're licensed termite inspectors as well. So you get that all in one package. So it's funny when people call and they say, you're not the cheapest. I always let them know the value of our service reflects our pricing.
Sure.
The quality of service that we provide reflects our pricing, and that's how it goes. You are not getting apples to apples if you're comparing me to somebody who's here. I have a full business and a structure and a support system so that when you actually really need something, we can be there for you. So, and those are the things that are part of our inspection process.
Okay. I love it. I love all that level.
So it kind of comes baked in with, the must-haves or the 3 things that you want to have. So
yeah,
yep.
I love the levels of expertise that you add in that you get included in the home inspection. That's really cool, especially the big one because we just talked about those topics. Okay, so great interview, man. So now we're at what we call the lightning round. Just going to hit you with some questions, and they're totally random. So don't worry about if you don't really know how to answer that because they are random. So what's your favorite inspection tool?
My FLIR camera. It picks up moisture or heat differences, so we can see missing insulation or areas of potentially could be moisture.
Is that when you're looking at a screen, you see all the colors and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that one fish that got away.
Oh, so I'm in the Keys with my son, and he's my fisherman. We're fishing at the humps. Him and I are a great team. And people, when they sleep in, sorry for your luck, it's just him and me. And so we're out over the marathon humps. He's like, oh, it's just another tuna, Dad. He's, he works the back of the boat, and he's just reeling it. It's just him and me, and he's reeling it in. Next thing you know, it just dives down. And he's like, I don't know what happened here. And so it dove down, and it dove down, and it dove down. We're in 600 feet of water, and it's not coming up. And so he's tugging on it for about an hour, and he's like, I need a break. I tug on it for about an hour, and I get to the point where I can see the top of the leader. So I have about 125 top shot of monofilament on top of it, right? Because I'm going from braid to monofilament. And then it goes back down 600 feet. Well, we spent over 3 hours doing that. It pulled us 9 miles into the Gulf Stream away from the marathon hump, and it just kept on going. And so the one last time as we were switching back and forth because we're just whooped, it's hot, right? We're sweating, and so I'm finally like, I'm done. It's dusk. We have to get back. It's going to get dark soon. And I keep cranking, reeling. I see the top of that leader line again. I'm like, I'm just going for it. And ping, snapped off. So we never got to see the fish.
Don't even know what it was to
Don't
give you
even
that right.
My thought is it was probably a swordfish. It came up and it whacked a tuna we caught and got hooked up. Yep.
Holy
Never got
moly.
to see it though. So it's to this day we're like, we wish we would have seen it.
That's hilarious. It also sucks at the same time, but it's a funny story. One thing that buyers never ask but should.
Yeah, the credentials of the inspection company that they're perhaps that are undercutting or are not providing the same value. You know, really ask the question like, really, what are you providing? And also how long they've been in business. What happens is you can find it cheaper anywhere, but ask yourself, how many times have you been happy with the outcome of cheaper?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more about value to me. Yeah, what do you get for the price? I love it. And then at the end of the day, what's your end of the day go-to, if any? Beer, bourbon, or a beach chair?
I like tequila.
You like tequila?
Yeah.
What's your favorite tequila?
So I have a few. So there's one of my favorites is 1942, Clase Azul, and then just for like regular cocktail hour, Casamigos is always just an easy go-to. But a good sipping tequila is my go-to.
And real quick, you had mentioned something early on, and I want to make sure the viewers heard this, was MySafe Florida. Could you elaborate on MySafe Florida real quick?
Yeah, so going back to some of this wind mitigation stuff, it's a good thing to invest in hardening your home with impact rated windows, as well as wind rated doors, impact rated doors. And so that way the home is hardened. And so MySafe Florida, they have these, it's not all the time, but they have these programs where they'll contribute up to $10,000 towards your home. You have to, fill out this paperwork. And I'm not quite sure the threshold for, your income that you make. There's some cutoff there, but the intention is for you to invest it into hardening your home, make it more impact resistant, which helps out the whole community, the insurance, community as well. So I would say look into that if you're a nurse, a school teacher, a police officer,
Okay. Very good advice. Well, Bob, man, it's been an awesome interview. So much knowledge shared, and I'm just glad that you came in because, man, we got a lot of good stuff today. And I think the viewers, anybody that watches this is going to get you shared a lot of good stuff.
Well, I didn't share any fishing tips, but maybe next time.
Yeah, we could use. I think everybody wants fishing tips, like your fishing spots, maybe. So, where do people go to find your company? It sounds like you got several. Where do you want to point them to?
So the main go-to is always the home inspection company. So that's www.ahandyhomeinspector.com. And that's or ahandyhigh.com, or call 239-340-0375. From there, we can transfer all the phone calls to either Harrison's Pest Control, Smart Environmental Solutions, as well as Coastal Marine Group. But that's an easy go-to because most people recognize us from that company.
Well, when it comes to protecting people's homes and waterfront investments, Bob is the real deal. That's where you go to find him. Hopefully you found value in this video and in this interview. If you have any questions for Bob, you know where to reach out to him, and obviously we will direct you down that path. But if you like this video, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever we put out new content. I'm Doug Lugers with Bob Cantu. Thanks for watching.